Mr. Speaker, permit me to thank the people of St. Lucia, especially the constituents of Castries East, for allowing me to serve as the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for another term. The results of the last general elections are a clear endorsement of the government's performance during the previous term. It is also an indication of the electorate's confidence in this government, knowing it will continue to serve the people of St. Lucia well by making their lives better, especially those most in need. I, along with my colleagues, humbly accept the commitment to serve, and I, for my part, promise to give my best. We will forever be grateful to the people of St. Lucia for the privilege to represent them in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, because of the geopolitical tensions between and among the bigger countries of the world, the rising cost of crude oil remains a constant threat, which can derail the developmental path for small countries like ours. Any persistent rise in crude oil prices will affect government revenues, trigger a rise in inflation, and ultimately affect the quality of life. Mr. Speaker, let me express my gratitude to the Cabinet of Ministers and the people of St. Lucia for understanding and support for the government's fuel pricing policy. If we had listened to the noise from the other side and allowed and followed their advice, our economy would be in panic with the increasing price of crude oil. I will have more to say on these implications during my policy statement in April. Mr. Speaker, when we commenced the budget process in September last year, we did not anticipate the level of economic uncertainty we are currently experiencing. Therefore, during the fiscal year 2026-2027, we will be expected to work more effectively and more efficiently. Mr. Speaker, the objectives of the last 4 budget years have been clear and consistent: to lay a strong foundation for sustainable economic growth and national development, while ensuring special attention is given to the most vulnerable in our society. Through careful planning and investment, we have prioritized the development of critical infrastructure that supports a productive and resilient economy. These developments include investments in healthcare, education, renewable and efficient energy, security of our citizens, and the rehabilitation and expansion of our road network. Mr. Speaker, we are beginning to reap the results of these investments. In 2025, economic expansion was driven largely by tourism, strong construction activity in both the private and public sectors, and improvements within the agricultural sector. These developments occurred within a macroeconomic environment characterized by relatively low inflation and declining unemployment. While we created an enabling environment for business growth and new employment opportunities, we have also taken deliberate steps to support the most vulnerable in our society. We did so by providing support to pensioners, enacting a minimum wage, increasing public assistance to the underprivileged, honoring our commitments to public servants, with a 14.5% wage increase and bonuses in December 2024 and 2025. Mr. Speaker, we put people first. Mr. Speaker, this year's budget, 2026-2027, will continue to build on the progress already made by consolidating the gains we have made by deepening our investments in critical infrastructure like the Hiwanora International Airports, modernizing our education system, removing barriers to business growth, and expanding the economy while ensuring fiscal responsibility. Mr. Speaker, in presenting the 2026-2027 estimates of revenue and expenditure, I shall first outline the 2025-2026 projected outturn against the approved budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Note, Mr. Speaker, the term projected outturn is used because when these figures were prepared, we had not yet come to the end of the fiscal year 31st March 2026. Mr. Speaker, the numbers speak for themselves. They provide clear evidence that through sound fiscal management and responsible stewardship, this government continues to place our country on a firm and sustainable economic footing. 2025-2026 expenditure performance. Mr. Speaker, we have ensured that expenditure remained within the budget ceiling of $2.06 billion. Our year-end outlook has indicated an overall government spending of $1.99 billion for the fiscal year 2025-2026, approximately 3.4% or $70 million below the approved budget. The projected outturn reflects a 2.9% decline in recurrent expenditure on government operations, mainly attributable to lower payments for goods and services and reduced interest payments. Capital project expenditure also decreased from $325.6 million to $267.9 million, caused by delays in project implementation. Wages and salaries. Mr. Speaker, by the end of the fiscal year 2025-26, the government is projected to spend approximately $606.9 million in wages and salaries, arising from both government and project operations, 0.2% or $1.4 million lower than the approved amount for 2025-2026, and 1.7% over the actual amount spent in the previous years, 2024-2025. An analysis of the results for the fiscal year 2025-2026 shows 500 in bonuses paid to all civil servants in December 2025, amounting to $4.8 million. 600 in bonuses paid to all pensioners in November 2025, a total of $1.9 million. Salary increases of $7.6 million to public servants in honoring the 2% increase in 2025 agreed in the collective bargaining agreements. $3.7 million in payment for material allowance to teachers. Debt service. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia continues to honor its debt obligations comfortably. For this fiscal year, we anticipate that total debt service will amount to $362.8 million, representing a 21.8% increase over the amount paid in 2024-2025 and a 2% reduction from the approved budget amount for 2024-2025. This increase over 2024-2025 is mainly the result of debt obligations that become due following the expiration of the grace periods granted to St. Lucia on several loans contracted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Principal repayments fell by 3.4% to $128.8 million for the year-end outlook, and interest payments fell below the amount approved by 1.2% to $234 million for the year-end outturn 2025-2026. Transfers. Mr. Speaker, for the financial year 2025-26, government paid out a total of $326.7 million in transfer payments to various agencies, an 18.3% increase over the approved figure of $276 million for the same period, and a 1.6% below the payments made in 2024 and 2025. These payments were made to support the following. More than $1.6 million was transferred to facilitate back pay to employees of statutory bodies that formed part of the collective bargaining arrangements with unions. Grants totaled $3 million to key social partners, charitable groups, and religious organizations caring for the needy and vulnerable. More than 13 million was paid in direct government public assistance to the underprivileged. In excess of 122 million as subvention to statutory boards and parastatal agencies. Provision for home care, for the home care program, 10 million was paid to facilitate an increased level of services. In excess of 3 million to cover some of the commissioning expenses for the new St. Jude Hospital. We have increased the allocation to tourism marketing by 3 million. In addition, we have expanded our marketing efforts through joint marketing with the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. Our marketing efforts are also enhanced by strategic use of the tourism levy collected on behalf of the government by the St. Lucia Hotel and Tourism Association. Goods and services. Mr. Speaker, the government is projected to spend a total of 413.2 million for goods and services, comprising 309.2 million for recurrent operations and 104 million for project operations. Permit me to highlight, Mr. Speaker, a few areas under this category. Supplies. This represents the supply of medical assistance and supplies to the health sector, hospitals, wellness centers, and clinics. Supplies for schools, sports, the security services, and operating equipment and stationery. Mr. Speaker, given the inadequate number of government-owned offices, a significant amount was spent on rental and hire. It is estimated that over 70 million will be spent in this subcategory, with a total of over 53 million for the rental of government offices and the hiring of equipment for road construction activities on government projects. Training. In excess of 12.4 million is expected to be spent. This will incorporate local and overseas training for nationals, as well as the cost of support for government educational policies, such as the one university graduate per household, payment of CXC fees to Form 5 students, and direct educational assistance to persons studying overseas. Additional provisions were made in this financial year, amounting to approximately 1.78 million to provide support to nursing students studying at Arthur Lewis College. The payment of one additional CXC subject, making it 5 in total, and the provision of funds to support private early childhood centers and their staff. Mr. Speaker, in this fiscal year, we will add one more subject, ensuring that no child is left behind. Training was also provided to new recruits for our security services, 78 police officers, 39 fire officers, and 25 correctional officers. In addition, summer employment was provided to 195 students, 98 secondary school students at a stipend of $1,000 per month, and 97 students from other institutions. Operations and maintenance expenditure. In excess of 48.8 million is expected to be spent on operations and maintenance. These expenses will include the upkeep of roads, potholing, maintenance of government buildings, provision of security service at educational establishments, health and government offices, and payment of licenses for software and other general maintenance. Developmental capital expenditure. Mr. Speaker, a total of 267.9 million is expected to be spent on capital investments in the 2025-2026 budget year, with 16.3 million being non-project capital and 251.6 million for capital projects. This performance reflects the 17.7% or 57.7 million less than the amount that was approved for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Mr. Speaker, although there were some delays in implementation, we are pleased to report that the implementation rate increased by 41.5% over the actual performance in 2024-2025. Efforts are still being made to improve the rate of implementation. More details will be outlined in my policy statement. Allow me to highlight some of the projected capital expenditure for a few agencies. Department of Infrastructure, total expenditure, 124.8 million, including the Millennium Highway West Coast Road, 33.8 million. Road improvement projects, 8.3 million. Renewable energy sector development project, 2.3 million. Department of Economic Development, 50.9 million. St. Jude Hospital, 30.1 million. Street lighting replacement project, 3.1 million. Constituency Development Program, 14.7 million. Department of Education, 15.9 million. Major repairs of schools, 10.8 million. Mobile devices for students, furniture and equipment, 3.2 million. Ministry of Housing and Local Government, 7.1 million. Cemetery expansion projects, 2 million. National Housing Assistance Program, 1.8 million. National Sites and Services, 3.3 million. Department of Physical Development, 12.2 million. Land Administration and Payment of Outstanding Debt to Landowners, 11.6 million. Ministry of Tourism, 6.4 million. Tourism Enhancement Project, 6.1 million. Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, 2.8 million. And sporting facilities and equipment. Financing of the budgets. Mr. Speaker, the government raised 1.7 billion to finance its operations and capital projects. This amount is as follows: 1.63 million in domestic revenues, 86.2 million in grants, 3.3 million in capital revenue, 88.8 million raised in loan funds already programmed, and 183.8 million in bonds and treasury bills. Domestic revenues for 2025-2026. Recurrent revenue. Mr. Speaker, the government raised a total of 1.63 billion in domestic revenues, comprising tax revenue of 1.48 billion and 145.8 million in non-tax revenue. Mr. Speaker, the performance in domestic revenues represents an overall increase of 0.3% over the amount approved for 2025-2026. The projected tax revenue increased by 2%, or 29.5 million. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that the estimated outturn for 2025 exceeds the revenue performance for the financial year 2024-2025 by approximately 5.3%, or 75 million, demonstrating the vibrancy of our economy. Tax revenue. Mr. Speaker, in 2025-2026, tax revenue increased by 2% above the amount estimated for the budget year to approximately 1.48 billion. The outturn represents an increase of 5.3% over the performance of 2024-2025. The main reason for this increase is an expansion of economic activity, resulting in an increase in demand for goods and services. Taxes on income and profits increased by 2.8% over 2024-25, arising mainly from increased business activity and taxpayers taking advantage of the ongoing tax amnesty program. The collection for arrears for both personal income tax and corporate income tax are expected to be 59 million. A second contributor to the increased revenue inflows comes from taxes on international trade and transactions. These taxes are expected to increase by 13.3% over the amount for 2024-2025, primarily due to increases in customs duties arising out of increased imports associated with increased economic activity. Other contributors to the increase in revenue over 2024-2025 include general taxes on goods and services, 3.7%, and excise taxes, 16.4%. Value-added tax, notwithstanding the zero rating of many items, is expected to increase by 3.8%, or 16.4 million, and the health and security levy is expected to increase by 1.9%, or 800,000. Non-tax revenue. Mr. Speaker, We are projecting 86.2 million in grant expenditures for the implementation of projects mainly arising from friendly governments and multilateral agencies. I would like to highlight some of them. The Republic of China on Taiwan, 47.3 million. United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Partnership Fund, UK CIP, 17.4 million. United Nations Environmental Programme, 6.8 million. European Development Fund, 1.2 million. Other grant contributors include the Caribbean Development Bank, the Caribbean Central Bank, UNICEF, the Foreign Corridor Development Office, the World Food Programme, Canadian Clean Energy and Forest Climate Facility Fund, Global Partnership for Education, and the Green Climate Fund. The Citizens by Investment Program. Mr. Speaker, 55 million has been transferred directly to the consolidated funds. 18 million non-interest bearing funds have been purchased. 50 million in the National Economic Fund is presently being held at local banks. The Citizens for Investment Program has financed several infrastructural, health, and security initiatives island-wide, for which details will be made available to honourable members during my policy address. Mr. Speaker, please be informed that the annual reports and audited financial statements up to 31st March 2025 have been prepared by the external auditor. Let me repeat, Mr. Speaker. The annual reports and audited financial statements up to 31st March 2025 have been prepared by the external auditor. The CIP program. Financing. Mr. Speaker, during my presentation of the estimates for 2025-2026 fiscal year, I had promised to fund the budgetary proposals with loan financing of 257.3 million. However, due to the robust performance of the economy, a deliberate decision was taken not to draw down on loans that the government had previously secured. As a result of that policy, approved loan financing of 257 million for the year ended March 2026 decreased by 65.6 million to 88.8 million. There was an increase in short-term financing in the form of treasury bills and bonds, illustrating a growing confidence in St. Lucian paper on the regional government securities market. It is worthy to note, Mr. Speaker, that the short-term interest rate on these instruments were in some cases lower than the interest on long-term instruments. Loan financing. Mr. Speaker, out of the 88.8 million, I would like to mention just a few of the projects that were financed by loans that were already programmed. The Caribbean Development Bank, 23.5 million. The Millennium Highway and West Coast Reconstruction, 5.2 million. Policy-based loans, Land Administration and Inland Revenue Department System, 10 million. Building capacity for public health system resilience, 2.7 million. Enhancing the resilience of the fire service, 5.1 million. International Development Association, World Bank, 30.3 million. Unleashing the Blue Economy of the Caribbean Project, 5.7 million. The OECS Regional Health Project, 5.5 million. The Renewable Energy Sector Development Project, 6.9 million. Tourism Enhancement Project, 6.1 million. And the Caribbean Development Fund, 2.9 million for community tourism, 2.9 million. Bonds, notes, and treasury bills amounting to 183.8 million were used to fund short to medium-term financing needs. Budget balances. Year-end outlook. Fiscal year 2025-2026. Mr. Speaker, the year-end outlook for the 2025-26 fiscal year points to one of the best budget performances in recent times. resulted in positive balances on all the fiscal accounts and a significantly reduced overall fiscal deficit. Please permit me to present the analysis. A current surplus of 199.3 million was projected. However, the year-end outlook for 2025-2026 indicates a current surplus of 243.6 million. A recurrent surplus of 65.9 million was projected. However, we anticipate a surplus of 114.8 million. A primary surplus of 34.7 million was projected by year end. It is estimated that the primary surplus will be 90.1 million. The overall fiscal deficit was originally projected at 202.1 million, has been reduced to 143.8 million, reflecting a decline of 58.2 million. Mr. Speaker, the actual performance for 2024-2025 financial year has been finalized and a similar pattern has emerged. The following metrics tell the story. Current surplus, 138.9 million. Recurrent surplus, 61.2 million. Primary surplus, 75.6 million. And the overall deficit fell to 144.4 million from the original projection of 215 million. Mr. Speaker, these results speak to a continued trend of sound, prudent fiscal management that provides benefits to the people while generating revenue from the effects of economic expansion and growth. Mr. Speaker, as we embark on this new financial year, 2026-2027, we are alive to geopolitical issues that confront us, over which we have little control. But I can assure the people of St. Lucia that their government will continue on the path of prudence and responsibility, ensuring that they, the people, will always come first. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the 2026-2027 budget proposal. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the uncertainty of the geopolitical environment, I'm optimistic that this year will be one of growth. This year's budget estimates are based on projections for continued economic growth, supported by improvements in performance in the tourism sector, increased public and private sector construction activity, particularly in tourism, given the high level of investment projects, and the expansion in domestic economic activity through growth in the orange and youth economy. Mr. Speaker, in these 2026-2027 budget proposals, government will endeavor to strengthen the country's reliance in preparation for the negative effects of climate change and economic shocks. Every effort will be made to improve overall productivity in the efficiency and delivery of government services. The private sector will be expected to assist the government's efforts to improve St. Lucia's ease of doing business ratings. To achieve these outcomes, we will reduce unnecessary and unplanned current expenditure by building efficiencies in government operations, reduce expenditure on energy, undertake strategic social expenditure in health and social services, in citizen security, in education, in sports and youth development, to improve the quality of life for our citizens, and in the process, make them more productive and active participants in the development of our country. Developing resilient infrastructure to service the growth needs of our economy. Mr. Speaker, for this 2026-2027 budget, we will work towards strengthening our resilience, improving productivity and efficiency in the provision of government services. We'll achieve these based on three major pillars. One, reduce unnecessary expenditure and build efficiencies in government's operations. Two, consolidate the gains that we have made in healthcare, public assistance, education, youth development, and the economy. Three, and as we build efficiencies, we'll find the space to focus on medium to long-term plans that will improve the economic well-being of our people. To support this agenda, Mr. Speaker, we propose the following for the 2026-2027 budget. Total expenditure, 2.189 billion, 6.4% above the approved estimates for 2025-2026. Recurrent expenditure, 1.750 billion. Capital expenditure, 298.6 million. Interest payments, 251 million. Principal payments and amortization, 140 million. Total revenue and grants, 1.83 billion, of which tax revenue, 1.58 billion, non-tax revenue, 175.1 million, capital revenue, 4.7 million, and grants of 81.5 million. We are projecting a primary surplus of 48.6 million, representing 0.5% of the GDP. Total expenditure, excluding refunds and principal repayments, is estimated at 2.04 billion, while total revenue and grants are projected at 1.83 billion. A projected overall deficit of 212.4 million, equivalent to 2.8% of GDP, is anticipated. Recurrent expenditure. Mr. Speaker, for the 2026-2027 fiscal year, the government is proposing to spend 1.75 billion in recurrent expenditure, representing 9.5% or 151.7 million increase over the amount approved in 2025-2026. The recurrent expenditure represents 80% of total expenditure and 78% of the approved 2025-2026. The increase in expenditure is due to an increase in wages and salaries, goods and services, transfers, interest charges on debts, operating expenses related to planned project activities, and higher rental payments for government offices. Wages and salaries. Mr. Speaker, wages and salaries for both government operations and projects represent 29% of total expenditure. The wage bill for the government continues to increase as we endeavor to meet our obligations to the workers. For the upcoming budget, a 2% salary increase is included in keeping with the collective agreement for 2025 to 2028. Wages and salaries will increase by 4.9% or 29.8 million over the approved figure for 2025-2026 and by 5.2% over the year-end outlook, 638.1 million. This figure includes wages and salaries for staff on projects and contracts. Debt service. Mr. Speaker, the debt service for the country is expected to increase in the next term due to the end of moratoriums that are ending on previously contracted debt. For the fiscal year, 391 million is allocated to debt service, representing an increase of 28.2 million or 7.8% when compared to the year-end outlook for 2025-2026. 251 million is allocated to interest payments and 140 million to principal repayments. Transfers. Mr. Speaker, we anticipate an increase in transfer payments to statutory boards and various social groups, caring for the vulnerable and underprivileged. A total of 336.5 million for the year ended 2026 to 2027 is projected for total transfers. Mr. Speaker, we have increased the allocation for organizations involved in the enhancement of the human condition in different sectors. Special needs schools, Viewford, Sufre, Donata, School for the Deaf, School for the Blind, we've increased by 1.3 million. Other social groups, 400,000. Organizations serving the elderly and homeless, 1.5 million increase. Groups in healthcare, including cerebral palsy, 500,000. A total of 13.8 million is programmed for public assistance to the less fortunate. Transfer payments also includes contributions to statutory bodies and regional and international agencies. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia is committed and meets its obligations as a member of regional organizations. Approximately 271.3 million has been provided to statutory bodies to fulfill the obligations to the public in health and other public services. Mr. Speaker, 124 million has been allocated to our two main hospitals, 83.7 million to the Millennium Heights Medical Complex for the payment of salaries and operational expenses, while 36.8 million to St. Jude's for salaries to cover operational costs. Mr. Speaker, grants and contributions to our hospitals are 60% of the total expenditure that has been budgeted for general health services, while the remainder is scheduled to be spent on other community health facilities and general health administration. Mr. Speaker, goods and services accounts for approximately 24% of the 2026-2027 estimates at approximately 514.5 million, comprising of 383 million for central government operations and 131.5 million for project operations. This outlay represents 10.1% over the approved estimates of 2025-2026 and a 24.5% over the year-end outlook. Mr. Speaker, 85 million has been allocated for rental and lease payments for government offices, reflecting a 30.8% increase over the amount approved in 2025-2026. These allocations are expected to cover rental for the new offices of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court at the Orange Grove Plaza, lease payments to NIPRO for the construction of government offices, including the newly completed Grosley Northern Police Headquarters, as well as rentals for various other government departments. Operations and maintenance, 75.3 million, representing a 7.3% over the amount approved in 2025-2026. This is to support funding for road maintenance, maintenance of government buildings, and the payment of digital and software licenses which support the provision of public services. Supplies of 57.5 million, representing approximately 9.9% increase over the approved estimates of 2025-2026. The expansion of the school feeding program will be funded from this source. Insurance, 25 million. This accounts for increased insurance coverage for specialized vehicles, ambulances, and airroom trucks purchased for the fire service in 2025 and others expected in 2026, vehicles for security service officers, insurance of government buildings, and some insurance for farmers. Development capital expenditure budget. This year, we intend to complete all major capital projects started some time ago. These include the Millennium Highway West Coast Road project and road construction started in the north and south of the island, including the Vieux-Secret Road in Grosley. This year, we'll commence work on the Shock Bridge and the Sir Julian R. Hunt Highway. Work on alternative energy projects will also be continued. The unleashing of the Blue Economy project, the continuation of several private and public sector construction projects, including major repairs to schools, including St. Mary's College. Work on the fifth finger of the OK Hospital is expected to commence this year. Capital expenditure, 492.7 million for capital projects, is estimated at 103.3 million, or 21%, is to fund operations at the Ministry of Infrastructure, including 42.5 million for design, finance, construct payments. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Economic Development and the Youth Economy is allocated 84.5 million, or 17.2% of the developmental budget. This project includes St. Jude Hospital, the youth economy, and St. Lucia's Urban Resilient Flood Investment Project. Mr. Speaker, 101 million, or 20%, has been allocated to the Department of Finance to facilitate the implementation of the Constituency Development Program, 20.9 million, Unleashing the Blue Economy, 17.1 million, the Home Care Program, 12.3 million, Economic and Social Enhancement Projects, 4.8 million, and the Government Financial Management System upgrade of 3.1 million. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Physical Development and Public Utilities has also been allocated a sum of 41.1 million, or 8.3% of the developmental budget. These include implementation of the Caribbean Renewable Energy Infrastructure Investment Facility, 17.1 million, the Caribbean Efficient and Green Energy Buildings, 10.1 million, Renewable Energy Sector Development Projects, 7.9 million, and Land Administration, 5 million. Mr. Speaker, this year, we will see major investments in the water sector through WASCO to help alleviate the long-standing issues in that sector. Mr. Speaker, 33.4 million, or 6.8% of the developmental budget, has been earmarked for the Department of Education. The main projects to be implemented for that agency are the OECS Skills and Innovation Project, 8.2 million, major repairs and rehabilitations of the school plant, 6.6 million, and the programming for education realignment and transformation, PUT, 3.1 million. Mr. Speaker, my government is also committing 17.8% or 3.6% of the developmental budget to the Department of Health to support the OECS Regional Health Project, 2.7 million, projects supporting post-COVID-19 response, 8.56 million, and others, including initiatives under the Universal Health Care Program of 4.3 million. Mr. Speaker, we have spoken about the need for food security and our capability to grow what we eat. 22.7 million, or 4.4% of the developmental budget, will support the agricultural sector. This amount will support building resilience to adaptation to climate change and climate variability, 7.9 million. The Fish Adapt Project, 2.3 million. And enhancement of food production in agriculture and fisheries, 1 million. Mr. Speaker, ministers will speak in more detail about the allocations to their ministries, including the programs to transfer land title to qualifying long-term existing occupiers free of charge. Mr. Speaker, I will now outline how the expenditure proposals contained in a 2026-2027 appropriation bill will be financed. We are projecting total revenue and grants of 1.83 billion. This reflects an increase of 6.7%, or 114.8 million over the approved amount in 2025-2026, and a 7.1% over the projected outturn for the end of the same period. The breakdown of revenue and grants is as follows. Recurrent revenue, 1.75 billion. Capital revenue, 4.7 million. Grant receipts, 81.5 million. Mr. Speaker, we expect economic expansion to continue in the upcoming year and remain optimistic based on proposed investment in the tourism sector. However, we will be vigilant and make the necessary adjustments if needs be, depending on how global geopolitical events unfold. Recurrent revenue, 1.7 billion. Mr. Speaker, recurrent revenue is projected to increase by 128.5 million over the approved estimates for 2025-2026 when compared to the outturn for the preceding year, 2024-2025. Recurrent revenue will increase by 125.1 million, or 7.7%. The total amount projected for recurrent revenue will be in the form of tax revenue, 1.58 billion, or 90%, and million in non-tax revenue. Tax revenue is forecasted to increase by 6.5% in comparison to the outturn for 2025-2026, while non-tax revenue is expected to increase by 20.2% compared to the outturn for the last fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, the increase in tax revenue will be influenced by continued projected expansion in economic activity, increased tax compliance, and the use by taxpayers of the ongoing tax amnesty program. The increase in non-tax revenue is projected to be influenced by CIP inflows. Mr. Speaker, I will now turn to details of the major revenue lines under this tax revenue category. Taxes on income and profits. Taxes on income and profits are projected to be 406.1 million, or 26.7% above the revised estimates of 2025-2026. This category is forecasted to perform well due to the continuation of the tax amnesty program and the ongoing expansion of the economy. The projection for the main items under this category: income tax and corporations. The revenue from income tax and corporations is expected to generate 194.9 million for the financial year 2026-2027, representing a 9.6% increase above the year-end outlook for 2025-2026. Income tax from individuals. Revenue from income tax, personal income tax, is estimated to account for 172.2 million. This represents a 1.4% increase from a 2025-2026 projected outturn. Income tax arrears. Income tax arrears are projected at 57.2 million based on responses to the tax amnesty program. Let me assure you, Mr. Speaker, the government will not give up on the collection of tax arrears. Taxes on international trade transactions. Mr. Speaker, customs duties, 244.3 million. This category includes excise taxes, cargo throughput charges, and import duties. Of the total amount to be collected, 177.6 million is expected to come from import duties, 137.2 million from excise tax, and 6 million from passenger facility fees. Taxes on domestic goods and services, 812.9 million. Taxes on domestic goods and services are expected to generate 812.9 million, which is 9.2% above the projected outturn for 2025. This category includes value-added tax, VAT, on domestic activity collected by the Inner Revenue. Receipts from VAT collected by the Inner Revenue account for 50% and are projected at 237.1 million, which represents a 1.3% increase relative to 2025-2026. VAT from international trade transactions collected by the Customs and Excise Department is projected to yield 235.7 million in 2026-2027, which is 8.8% or 216.6 million above the 2025-2025 outturn. Health and Security Levy. Mr. Speaker, the Health and Security Levy will remain at 2.5% and is projected to record an increase of 11.9 million above the 2025-2026 outturn to reach 53.3 million for the new fiscal year 2026-2027. Mr. Speaker, expenses on health are estimated to be 259.3 million and expenses on citizen security 200.4 million. Mr. Speaker, the Ministers of Health and Home Affairs will give further details on government expenditure in these areas under the various expense heads. Mr. Speaker, a simple calculation, arithmetic that is, will show that total expenses for health and security were projected to be 459.7 million, while collections on health and security levy will be 53.3 million. Mr. Speaker, we continue to increase spending on health and security in our country. This month, we commissioned the Swift Justice Program to reduce the backlog of over 1,000 pending criminal cases in the system for several years. Later this year, the new St. Jude Hospital will receive patients at the facility, a milestone in the delivery of health care for St. Lucia. Other revenue, non-tax revenue, 175.2 million. The 2026-2027 estimates for non-tax revenue are estimated at 175.2 million, or 20.2% increase over 2025-2026 outturn. The main contributor to the increase during the current fiscal year is expected to be higher inflows from the contribution of the Citizens Investment Program. The following are the major components of non-tax revenues for the projected 2026-2027 outturn. Voluntary transfers, other grants. Mr. Speaker, the Citizens by Investment Program is expected to deposit 85 million into the consolidated fund. Over revenue from voluntary transfers is estimated to increase by 30.3 million, or 54.5% over the outturn for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. Income from property. Revenue collections from this category are expected to increase by 7.2 million. Sales of goods and services, 64.6 million. Revenue collections from sales of goods and services is reflecting a decrease of 7.3% below the projected outturn for the previous financial year. Grant revenue. Grant receipts attached to project expenditures are estimated at 81.5%, reflecting a 4.7 million decline over the projected outturn for 2025-2026 fiscal year. This amount represents 27.3% of the total capital expenditure programmed to fund ongoing projects. Some of the major contributors to the grant inflows are the Taiwanese government, 41.7 million, the European Development Fund, 3.9 million, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the United Nations Environmental Program, 9.3 million. Mr. Speaker, given the projected level for revenue and grants and the budgeted expenditure ceilings, the budget is expected to reflect an overall deficit of 212 million for the fiscal year 2026-2027. This gap will be financed from a combination of loans and bonds. Given our previous pronouncements regarding the government's debt strategy to secure external borrowing on concessionary terms, 202.9 million will be secured from developmental partners, and the remainder, 49.5 million, will be secured from bonds, treasury bills, and notes. Some of the external borrowing already identified and sourced: Republic of China and Taiwan, Exim Bank, 160.7 million. International Development Association, the IDA, 77.4 million. The Caribbean Development Bank, 33.43 million. The Government of Saudi Arabia, 16.5 million. The African Export-Import Bank, 2.2 million. Caribbean Development Fund, 2.4 million. The European Investment Bank, 6.1 million. And the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, 4 million. Mr. Speaker, this budget of 2,188,765,900 was compiled before the war in Iran and the subsequent increase in oil prices. Our small open economy will be more negatively affected by geopolitical events than larger countries, making a disproportionate call on our limited resources. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to trust the people of St. Lucia and keep them informed when and if changes in the budget forecast are necessary. Mr. Speaker, this budget seeks to undertake the following. 1. Major upgrades in infrastructure, including the Sir Julian R. Hunt Highway, the Shock Bridge, and the Hewanor International Airport. 2. Investments in renewable energy to include the passage of the electricity supply bill. 3. Continuing work on the energy sector development project, among other renewable energy projects. 4. Continuing investment in national security and citizen security. 5. Expansion in tourism, including opening of over 500 rooms in 2027. 6. Expansion of the youth economy. 7. Commencement of work on the George Odlum Stadium. 8. A fully functioning St. Jude Hospital. 9. Evidence for decision-making based on data and research. 10. Major repairs to schools. Construction of SCN schools. 11. Emphasis on special needs education, SCN. 13. Further early childhood and education initiatives. 14. Programming, education realignment and transformation put to continue the education transformation. 15. Transfer of land title to qualifying occupants free of charge. 16. Major investments in the water sector, including the promotion of rainwater harvesting. 17. Efficient and green buildings. 18. Caribbean Renewable Energy Infrastructure Investment Facility. 19. Renewable energy sector developmental projects. 20. Policies to improve the welfare of our vulnerable, older, and challenged citizens. Other initiatives will include 21. Further implementation of the initiation of the Blue Economy Project. 22. Enhancing the resilience of the fire service for capacity building and procurement of much-needed equipment for the fire service. 23. Several major projects in the tourism industry. 24. Enhancement of the community-based tourism project. 25. Universal health coverage. 28. Easier business facilitation for the Ease of Doing Business program. 29. Support and grants for the creative industry and orange economy participants. 29. Fish adaptation project. 30. Housing development projects in several areas. And 31. Measures to enhance food security and agro-processing. Mr. Speaker, the externalities of geopolitical events, our open borders and small size, and our dependence on tourism make small island states like ours extremely vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding these challenges, I remain confident that through sound policies, strong fiscal management, and decisive action, this government will competently navigate the hostile waters ahead. We have demonstrated, and the people have agreed, with our ability to respond to external shocks through sound fiscal management. Our approach will continue to be guided by prudent economic management, while supporting key sectors of the economy, strengthening our fiscal position, and safeguarding the well-being of our citizens, particularly the vulnerable. And the citizens of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, have for the past 5 years agreed with our policies, and that is why they have returned us to government with an increased majority on the 1st December 2025. Mr. Speaker, our deepest thanks and appreciation to the permanent secretaries and staff of all ministries and heads of department. I should not be faulted if I single out the Budget Office. The Budget Office has been involved in undertaking major reforms to the budget information system to make information accessible to all. Our reforms, Mr. Speaker, will lead to the presentation of the estimates in digital format very shortly. I thank the staff of the National Printing Corporation for their input, my family, the Cabinet, and you, Mr. Speaker, and your staff, law enforcement officers, and my staff at the Office of the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I continue to appreciate and love you, the good people of St. Lucia, I thank you. I thank you for the mandate given to us. Mr. Speaker, I present to this Honorable House the 2026-2027 estimates of revenue and expenditure. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.